Alexander Glyadyelov has covered armed conflicts in the Middle East, Asia and Africa, bringing us images that capture the horrors of war. Now the battlefield is his own country, the front line in his home city of Kyiv. The award-winning photographer joins us now via video link to tell us more about documenting the tragic events on his doorstep. Alexander, thanks so much for being with us. How is the situation in Kyiv? Have you been able to take photos in recent days?
Today is more silent than previous months. And today is, for me, is day off because I have to develop 12 films from my visit to Chernihiv and yesterday visit to village Mashchun. There was a place in which Russian troops try to break through Ukrainian front line to Kyiv.
So you're still very actively documenting the situation. Now, I know that you also documented the Maidan protests, the pro-European movement that started at the end of 2013 and took off in 2014. That was a pivotal moment in Ukraine's recent history because it coincided with the annexation of Crimea by Russia. Thinking back to that period, what did you take away from it as a photographer and as a Ukrainian?
I want to say I expected the Russian invasion many years, and it happens after Maidan. So it's like continuous story, 8 years, horrible story of my country. Our army was not ready to stop invasion, but together with population, with volunteers battalion, Ukrainians did it, and I've been extremely expressed how ordinary people fight for freedom and for their country.
Coming back to the current situation in Ukraine, many photographers like yourself are documenting their experience of the war, whether it's the view from their makeshift bomb shelters or the scenes of destruction in towns across the country. An exhibition at the Ukrainian Cultural Centre here in Paris has brought those perspectives to a wider audience. Miriam Benjilali and Alison Sargent have this report.
They stayed behind to bear witness. Now 34 photos by Ukrainian artists are on display at the Ukrainian Cultural Centre in Paris in a show titled Les Indomptables, The Untamables.
I thought for a long time about a possible concept, and in the end I understood that it wasn't time for a concept yet, because everyone is still in the middle of the process. I saw all of these initiatives from Ukrainian citizens who have turned into a vast volunteer movement in recent weeks.
The show centers around the black and white images of documentary photographer Alexander Glyadyelov, but also features younger artists like Olga Drozda and her series, Thank You for One More Day. For viewers, the photos have a powerful immediacy, most taken within the past several weeks, just several thousand kilometers away.
It's impossible not to be moved because the photos were taken recently, photos of war, disaster and destruction. I particularly like the face of Klitschko, the mayor of Kyiv, because I find that he perfectly embodies the resistance and the engagement of the Ukrainian people.
This must be someone who didn't expect to become a fighter or a soldier. The aquarium, the cat with his gun on his back. It's striking to me because I can almost imagine it being one of my friends in this photo.
Like all Ukrainians staying behind to fight, those documenting the war are also risking their lives. Several journalists have already been killed in the war, including photographer and filmmaker Max Levin.
Now, Alexander, your photographs feature among those on show in that exhibition. Can you tell us more about one particular image? That's people holding hands as they make their way across a shaky-looking plank of wood. What was happening when you took that photo?
It's the shortest way from city Irpin and Bucha to evacuation point. And the bridge being exposed. So troops, Ukrainian army troops, make this way through the river and help people to cross the river. It was continuous flow every day, sometimes under the shelling, and some people being killed exactly on the spot.
We have heard about the horrors that have been happening in Bucha indeed.
Yes,
Now,
women and the children been killed just when they cross the river, and they've been killed by bombing.
Now, one of your fellow artists, Olga Drozd, who also features in that exhibition, she named her series "Thank You for One More Day." Now, that's a very poignant title that really captures this idea that people in Ukraine are living from one moment to the next. Is that something you identify with, and how's that affecting you?
I even don't know what I have to answer. I just woke up early morning, took my camera and go to the next place to make a picture. And as I think, this is Max, this is my friend who been killed by Russians with 2 shots. And it happens, he just passed my home. I've been few blocks from this place, and he invited me to take a place in his car, but I've been busy with other my friends with whom I'm photographing. And it was my last conversation with him.
Max Livin there, a very respected photojournalist, a photographer who was tragically killed during this war. Now, I wanted to talk about your career in photojournalism. It's taken you all around the world, but I know that you've covered specifically some regional conflicts in Chechnya, Nagorno-Karabakh, Transnistria. These are all conflicts which involved Russia, a dynamic that we're seeing again in Ukraine today, but in a different context. Can you tell us more about working in that post-Soviet climate and how it compares to what's happening in Ukraine today?
Well, first, post-Soviet war, I saw and I was on a place, and also I've been wounded very, very soon, like 15 minutes on the combat field, and I got a bullet. It was Transnistria, part of Moldova. And just a little bit after I understood how it was organized, and it like a matrix to all the post-Soviet conflicts. When a big empire don't want to be don't want to lose territories, and try to keep them and control them through these local conflicts.
Today, with the ubiquity of camera phones, lightweight recording material, getting visual evidence of wars and violence is easier today than ever. We've seen this conflict. There you go. There's the example. Play out.
Easy instrument, you see, and this.
Exactly. And these are very accessible tools. And so we've seen this conflict play out on our screens in real time. But there are accusations as well of fake news, manipulation of images. How do you judge the coverage? Has it been fair, do you think?
My personal view, the real picture is the last trench of the truth. And I'm really not a photojournalist. I'm a documentary photographer, and conflict is just a small part of my photography. Because many years I'm working on long-term documentary projects about socially unprivileged kids, about HIV epidemic in Ukraine, about post-Soviet prisons, which I visited in many places of former Soviet Union, like Russia in Siberia, like Central Asia, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Moldova, and my country, Ukraine. So conflicts is just a part.
Indeed. Well, speaking of your career, looking at your body of work, a lot of the circumstances that you photographed in these documentary photographs show serious hardship, illness or incarceration, a lot of suffering inflicted by our fellow humans. Are there scenes or circumstances that act as a counterweight to that? Are there things that give you some hope?
Yes. I still hope in a human being. I love people, and maybe my images looks horrible, but it's everything about the hope in the future and about the love to people.
Alexander, thank you so much for joining us today. A reminder that Alexander's work features in that show, Les Indomptables, or The Unshakables. We'll wrap up the show with music from Ukraine's young rap talent, Alyona, who's been using her platform as an artist for activism in recent weeks. This track, Molitva, translates as prayer and features Ukrainian singer Jerry Hale. That's her call for peace in Ukraine. We'll leave you with a clip. Do remember to check out our website. We're also on social media. There's more news coming up on France 24 just after this.
Всемогутній наш Господи, добрий, Твоя велич не має тут міри. Хай як Ти, воїн буде хоробрий, хай в серцях буде ще більше віри. Вбережи нашу землю родючу, щоб плоди нам продовжили віку. І спаси від Каховки до Бучі душі жінки, дітей, чоловіка. І своєю святою водою вмий обличчя від вражої крові. Наша віра й надія з Тобою. Дай в серця нам ще трохи любові.